it just got to a point for me though that I just knew it wasn't the path that I wanted to continue taking. And my heart was just calling and toward entrepreneurship. And specifically, I still had people reaching out to me about this blushing thing. And I'm like, man, I got to do this. And I start creating an online identity that is a little inaccurate to who I am in person, and what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then I feel this huge contradiction between I know how lazy I am half the day, and then I look so productive online. I think most of us let ourselves down. I think I speak for most people out there that we know we can do so much more, and we're not doing it, and that is why we have the low self-esteem. I mean, perfection is like a fault, like it's a falsehood. It's just not like what is perfection? I mean, it's everything's so subjective on what is right and what is wrong. So there really is no definition anyway. So anytime you're trying to say I'm a perfectionist or it needs to be perfect, it's like perfect to who, and it doesn't add up. So it's just a reason not to put something out. It's like from first principles that if you don't believe blushing is embarrassing, you won't have a fear of it. Like that is a fact. The confidence that comes from external validation is very much an illusion. Like you get that temporary hit of, oh my gosh, people liked this. The satisfaction from that goes away almost just as fast. And so you can try to convince yourself all day, you can try to hype yourself up all day, but you're still going to have the fear until you actually put your body in the situation and your brain can see for itself that the threat that like it thinks that it's real. It fully believes that it's a threat. But until you show it that it is not by going up to the spider or going through running through the park, like whatever it is that scares you, or like with blushing, it's common things like going to the store, talking to their coworker, things like that people try to avoid all the time. What happens is the more that you avoid your fear, the more that you prove to your brain that you're going to survive if you avoid it. So then it thinks, yes, there's a threat here because your brain's like, okay, there's a threat there. You're like, okay, I got to get out of here. Whew, we survived. All right, I'll tell you again next time I think that there's that threat there, right? Like that's how your brain perceives fear and anxiety. And so the way that you break that cycle is you have.
Can you take me to the moment when you decided that you were going to create breakthrough blushing?
Absolutely. I actually remember this pretty distinctly. I was scrolling through Reddit for just something random, and then I came across a post for the in the erythrophobia subreddit of somebody that was really struggling. And I don't know why that came up on my feed, but it did. And I'm glad that it did because it made me realize that there are people who are still suffering from this because at that point it had been 6 years, maybe, yeah, about 6 years since I even thought about blushing. And so I saw this post and I was like, I know how to help this person get through this. They were talking about how stuck they were. They've tried every medication. They've tried all this therapy. They've looked into surgery. And I was like, I know what this person needs to do. I just didn't know how to articulate it. So I spent the next 4 months every day before work, about 2 hours at Starbucks, just thinking about this. And I was going to turn it into sort of like a book. And so I started thinking through every step of the process that somebody would need to go to, why this happens, and the exact steps that anybody could take to actually solve this. And I came up with a system after about 4 months, and I started making TikToks about it and sharing it with people, created a Facebook group, started working kind of one-on-one for free with people just to see if this was actually working for anybody. Feedback started getting really good. There were some things that needed to be improved though. So I went through, redid everything, created a video course, took more people through it, got better results, faster results. And then I started taking on paid clients as well. And so that has really been the 60-second overview of creating this program.
The interesting thing is, I think the last time we talked, you were doing the short form content on TikTok and you felt a little trapped in it. And you want to do more of the long form content. And then you and I both have been on a similar journey where we were like, we want to do this, like help people with the blushing, but we also don't want to put ourselves in a box. And so, like for myself, I was started working on my personal brand, but then I would go back to the blushing thing. And then I've seen even in your work that you're still doing some stuff kind of in your own personal brand, more of like your entrepreneur journey, you kind of like figuring out your way in all of this, but it looks like you circled back into working harder on breakthrough blushing. Is that a little bit of like what happened?
Yeah, this was a huge internal conflict is deciding between like what makes the most business sense and what makes the most personal sense in terms of like what would fulfill me versus what would actually be the most logical in terms of growing a business. And so on the logical side or on the business side, it makes the most sense to niche down and be able to speak very specifically to one target audience and have one very clear solution for them because they come across your page and they're like, this guy gets it. They get me. And like, therefore, this product, it must work for me. Like, it must be the thing that works. And so, then the more that you dilute the message, the weaker that connection becomes, right? The more that you start talking about other things, the more that your solution targets more people. People are like, this might work for me, but I'm not totally sure because the message, not every single thing you post hits them, right? And so, when I was thinking about this, my entire goal is to be an entrepreneur. That's what I care about most. And a couple of months ago, I left my job to go back full time into entrepreneurship because that's what my heart is just telling me to do. And so right now, I just know that blushing is the thing that I understand very well. And I'm willing to, basically be a little constricted on what I can talk about in order to pursue the path that really, lights me up. And that's just building a business. And I've realized I get a ton of joy coaching people through this because I feel so confident in it that when I am doing coaching sessions, I feel like in the absolute best flow state ever. And when it comes to the short form versus long form, that's interesting because the short form videos, you just can't change somebody's life in 60 seconds. You can't change somebody's life in 90 seconds. And I used to try. I used to try to pack as much information as I could, but you're actually doing the viewer a disservice at that point because they think they changed their life. They think they got this new perspective, this aha moment. They click save on your post, and then they scroll and they never see it again. And so I've realized that, some people, I used to think as well that like it's sort of manipulative almost to hold back the truth, get people to click, get people to move further into the quote unquote funnel. But getting them from that short form video into a longer form YouTube video where they can actually spend 30 minutes with you, 60 minutes with you, like that's where they can actually start breaking beliefs and start making real change. Like this podcast, like it's spending significant time thinking through these things is where you actually have breakthroughs, not in a 60-second post. So that has been the new strategy is making these TikToks as much as I can to get people to watching YouTube, which is where they can actually have the bigger breakthroughs.
You went to Funnel Hacking Live recently, and this kind of, I guess, provoked a lot of some of your new stuff that you've been coming up with. Tell us a little bit about your experience there, and it seems like it really opened up a lot about like urgency and transparency with you talking about your goal to make 20,000 in 6 months to keep your apartment. So,
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about that.
2 months ago, I reached a point at my job. I was working in sales, very high pressure environment, and I really am grateful for that opportunity. I mean, it taught me work ethic. It taught me how to sell better. It taught me um, just what like hard work looks like, to be honest with you. The people there were incredible at what they do. And so it just got to a point for me, though, that I just knew it wasn't the path that I wanted to continue taking. And my heart was just calling and toward entrepreneurship. And specifically, I still had people reaching out to me about this blushing thing. And I'm like, man, I got to do this. And so I had enough saved up for about 6 months, which is also the amount of time left on my lease here in Chicago. And so I decided to just take the leap. And at that point, I hadn't taken on a new client for Breakthrough Blushing in like 6 months. So I was effectively starting at zero, but I knew that I could do it. I knew that I had the skills required to do it. It just required me and my work ethic to keep up and actually put in the time to make it work. And so I knew that I would regret just not taking the chance. So I went for it. And the past 2 months, I've been growing steadily, but still nowhere near $20,000 a month. That's only my goal, just because it's a number that like I think sounds great. But reality, I could survive off of less than half that. But it's an interesting journey, and I'm learning a lot about myself in terms of getting myself to do the work, because I realized that I am my biggest limiting factor, and the only reason that I'm not making the money that I want to make or doing the amount of work that I want to be doing is really because of just contradictory beliefs that I have in my head that are trying to say you should enjoy the moment, but you also have these big goals and you got to sacrifice the moment. And it's these constant contradictions I'm realizing, and I'm just starting to become more aware of, that it's been an incredible process so far. Still got a long way to go. We're going to see if I can hit the $20,000 a month within 6 months to quote unquote save the apartment, which is actually kind of accurate. But we'll see if I can do it.
When you talk about the two conflicting voices, oh, this one hit me so hard when I watched your Instagram reel on it, where it's the enjoy the moment versus work hard and the discipline and the focus and all the topics you've been talking about lately. Because I just felt like so seen and heard when I heard you, talking about it, because we can post and talk and share with authority, but and I'll circle back to this. It's also like where you did the one about I'm the poorest, weakest, and most undisciplined version of myself right now. Like because it's almost like a conflicting message of like this person has this authority and he can help me do this, and that, but you're also sharing so raw, like, yes, but and we can, because that's an area where I've struggled, even with blushing in the past, where I thought, how could I ever be a coach or a guide to anybody if I still actually turn red? Like I didn't heal it. And then it's where I realized in my mindset that it was never about healing it. It's about how I'm looking at it, what I believe about it, what I'm going to do regardless of it, and how I see it now and how I see myself now, which is totally different and transformative, in regards to who I was even 3 years ago. But you were talking about that conflict, and that is something for me personally where I've struggled, and why I kind of start things with Blushing Phoenix, stop Blushing Phoenix, start things with Blushing Phoenix, stop Blushing Phoenix. Because in order to really create valuable content, especially like programs and things like that, that could also be a source of money so that I could actually run a business and then create more stuff that could help and bring value to people. That part is not pretty. Like I can get on a camera and talk all day and just have no, I can just do this. This is easy for me. But to actually sit down and put my thoughts together and focus it in a way that could actually help somebody if they took and applied the things and transform their lives. And so then I get into, you really should just go like enjoy life. You should just, don't worry about just blushing. You're so much more. You teach people you're so much more than just blushing. And like, let's talk about all the other things we want to talk about instead, which, like you said, makes the audience a lot broader. It's a little harder to connect. And then I get a little frustrated, even though I'm expressing myself. I get a little frustrated because I would like to be able to use those gifts to bring value to people, but also as an entrepreneur, be able to actually have a business that's scaling. So, I mean, share a little. I know you shared a little bit about it, but just for anybody who's listening who has that inner conflict where they feel like they can start something, but then they can't stick to it. I know for me, it circles back around to like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just like stick to something? And then if you want to segue into some of your focus that you've been in lately, where you're focused on focusing,
Yeah.
and how that's helped you as well.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And the first thing I'm going to start with is actually what you were talking about like the almost imposter syndrome, I think is what I get from it in terms of thinking that who am I to guide people? Who am I to mentor people on this? Now that I coach people on the blushing, I realize that it's very common for people who are like perfectionists, high achievers, whatnot, however we want to label ourselves. Um, it's very common for us to feel like we need to know everything and that we have to set this bar so high and then meet that bar. But what I realize is that people's perception of us, it really comes and really just like people's overall happiness, like towards like a product, towards a service, towards a person, it comes from like the expectations that they set and then whether or not they meet those and pass them. And so if you have the bar set so high and then you fail to meet it, you let people down, right? And you let yourself down. And so the answer is not to kill yourself by trying to have the bar so high, but instead to just bring the bar down to where it actually is and just be honest instead of putting on an image, right, for other people. And so that's why I posted that about like I am the poorest, weakest, most undisciplined version of myself that I ever want to be, because I sometimes get into this cycle I start trending and making posts in the wrong direction. I start creating an online identity that is a little inaccurate to who I am in person, and what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then I feel this huge contradiction between I know how lazy I am half the day, and then I look so productive online, right? And so I can't personally deal with that internal conflict. I have a very hard time, and it creates so much tension inside of me. And it feels like I am an imposter, right? That's where imposter syndrome comes from. And so the solution that I've realized is just be authentic, like be truthful. And at first, you're going to be like, ooh, this is embarrassing. But then it does a couple of things. One is it weeds out the people who only cared about the fake side of you, like this, like who don't actually like the authentic you. And then two is it creates the deepest possible connection with people who actually get you and want to have a deeper connection with you, right? The amount of people who reached out to me after that post and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is me. I can't believe it." Or they commented, it's insane. Compared to the surface level posts that try to show off to other people, people just leave a like and they scroll. And so if the goal is to really develop true connections, just be as authentic as possible. But the other part of your question was like, well, what was it? It was going into
Focus.
focus.
Focused on focusing.
Oh man. And like feeling that tension. Yeah, this has been tough. And what I'm coming to realize is that the only reason we're not doing the work that we know we need to do to accomplish our goals is because of conflicting beliefs. So you have one set of beliefs that are valuing like the present moment, and then you have another set of beliefs that are valuing like your overall life. And I feel like we're always bouncing between these two. I should relax, but I should also work hard, right? I should rest, I should also push. So like there's these constant like this constant push and pull. And I'm realizing that it's going to look different for everybody, but um, this is where I can't even give advice because I'm really just thinking about it myself. But here's what I'm thinking about is like identifying what is the overarching goal that you're trying to accomplish? What is the thing that gives you the most satisfaction when you look back over your life? And for me, I think it's confidence. It's from sticking to things and doing things that even if they felt hard in the moment, the compounding results from it make me feel so good. So when I look in the mirror and I feel good about my body, like that is, I think, peak feeling for me in my life. And same thing with like looking back at the work that I've done and feeling good about it. And so what I'm trying to do is realizing that these short-term emotions of like wanting to be happy, wanting to be enjoying the moment, you should take a break, you should rest, like all these urges you get, they're pulling me away from that feeling that I truly care about. And so it's really just becoming aware of these thoughts, aware of these urges to take a break, to rest, take it easy today, and realizing that that is pulling me away from the ultimate goal that actually matters. And then I redirect and I try to focus back on the work. So that's been my process, but it's very much a work in process.
The conflicting beliefs and the tension. I mean, you said you got so many people who reached out to you after that. That was one of, I think all your posts are fantastic, but that was one that I remember I was like laying in my bed and I listened to it and I felt like so called out and like so even though you're talking about yourself, but I'm like, I think sometimes we can see other entrepreneurs with what they display of their lives, and it's nice because it sets the bar or it sets you in motion for what could be. I was watching this thing on YouTube the other day where it's funny because it's like these um like YouTubers go out to like Bali and they interview people in Bali to ask them, what do you do to be a digital nomad? And it's funny because they're doing the same thing, but they're like, so what do you do to be a digital nomad? And a lot of them are like in their 20s, early 30s, and they're real people that are sharing what they're doing, how they're making money in the digital space. And I was sitting there watching it and I thought, if this can be true for them, it could be true for me. It could be true for anybody. It's just really about the belief of can it be true and the work it takes to make it true. And I was talking to my husband the other day because we were talking about Ignite and April Pointer and how do we like, put all these things together and Blush and Phoenix and make them work. And I said something about you and I was going to host you on the show. And I said, Collin, he's so different. He's just different. Like I've met a lot of people. I have other people who reach out to me who want to be on the podcast that I just don't feel like they're aligned with some of the values that I have here. And I was like, but Collin's different. He just got that fire. And I was in this conflict of my own personal brand and the things I'm trying to do in my own creative processes. And my husband just turns and looks at me. We're taking a walk and he goes, you have fire. Like it's so easy to see it in somebody else or coach it in somebody else. But because I live in that tension all the time, where when I have confidence, I feel like I've got this. Why wouldn't I be able to do something with this? And then I start spinning and it takes me into like that perfectionist mode. And then I hear you say, I'm this version of myself right now. And like, and I'm going to change that. And then even seeing you be honest and raw with your plans on, like day 3 of focusing on focus and how I think you said you did 4 days, like a 4-day project in one day, because you were able to get into kind of that flow state and that focus. So take me into a little bit of like what transitioned that for you and how did you go from being lazy on the couch to get focused and do
Yeah.
4 days worth of work in one day?
Oh, this is so good. And I'm glad you're asking me because it's refreshing for me as well. One comment I wanted to make actually, you were talking about like the he's got that fire. When you say those words, even I'm like, I don't know, do I? Like because like I just no one you're the only one who knows what you actually do, right? You're the only one who knows what you're actually capable of versus what you actually do. And I think most of us let ourselves down. I think I speak for most people out there that we know we can do so much more and we're not doing it. And that is why we have the low self-esteem. But that is why I reached that point where I made that video. I was like, this is ridiculous. I've wasted the past 3 days doing very little work, and I'm just sick of it. And it's all because I don't know why, actually. It's all because I'm giving into these short-term beliefs of like how I should feel in the moment versus over the long term. And when it comes to focus, I took away from that day when I just like decided to focus. I realized that focus is absolutely a choice. It's you choosing that long-term payoff over the short-term payoff. That is all it is. And so you're going to feel those same urges. You're gonna be like, oh, I should check to see if somebody texted me. I should check to see if another application came in, or did somebody put something on my calendar. You're going to get a million urges, at least I do. And right when you start the day, but it's about choosing to believe that the work in front of you is the most important thing, and that if you don't get to those other things, it's okay. Now, I've also realized that you have to, there's, this is such a deep topic. There's so many layers to this because you sometimes start getting into this mindset of, oh no, if I do that all the time, then I'm going to lose all my relationships. I'm going to be lonely because I'm not responding to people. And so now you have to think about, okay, do I have things in place that allow me to maintain social connection? So it's like, okay, I need to make sure that I have plans set up every night. So that way I'm not checking my phone all day because I can remind myself, at least I have plans tonight. And so like you have to have we have these basic human needs that sort of need to be met. And you have to make sure that they are being met. And then once they are being met, once you know you got enough sleep and you feel the urge to go back to bed, you know you can fight through it because you know you got enough sleep, right? You're not going to die. You're not going to actually pass out. And then, like, if you know you ate enough today and you get the urge to eat at the end of the day, you know that that is just a craving. That's not a real, like, I should eat. And it's easier to get yourself to say no when you can start from that basis of logic, right? So, like, that's what I've been trying to do is, like, what are my needs that need to be met every day? And then making sure those are met. And then when I feel those urges coming in, I'm like, this is genuinely just a distraction. This is an illusion of my old beliefs telling me what I should do, but it's not actually, I know that it leads me somewhere that I don't like. And so just knowing that I'm going to survive if I ignore that, and then choosing to ignore it. And it's not easy. And it's something that I'm continuously practicing every single day. But I feel like just having an awareness of it is getting me a lot better.
Yeah, like the awareness and realizing it's a choice and it's something you have to choose over and over and over again, until it does become a little bit easier when you get used to it. Your brain is trying to protect you from something new. Whenever we step into something new or putting ourselves out there publicly or creating something, or, you know, could it be that I could actually have a multi-million, billion-dollar business in the future? Like the brain goes, that's way too scary. Let's come back to what we know. It's that thermostat that wants to bring you back
Yes.
down to the normal temperature. So it's just really refreshing to hear you share it because it's something that I've dealt with many times in my career until you kind of have that upper limit breakthrough. And then you get back into this new version of here we go, we're going to get it done. And then boom, back into the spiraling and the questioning and the perfectionism. And I am very much like a big executor, like, let's get things done. Let's just go. Let's just see what happens. And I can always tell whenever I'm in like analysis paralysis and I'm just going around the circle and trying to really get every word to be right. I'm like, what am I afraid of right now? Like, what is it? It goes into that perfectionism area, and that perfectionism, you said in one of your videos that perfectionism being a mask for the fear of failure. And could you just share a little bit more about what your insight about perfectionism, your personal experience with it, and how you kind of came to that realization that this is me just not wanting to look stupid and be dumb in front of everybody. This is a fear of failure.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, perfection is like it's a falsehood. It's just not like, what is perfection? I mean, everything's so subjective on what is right and what is wrong. So there really is no definition anyway. So anytime you're trying to say I'm a perfectionist or it needs to be perfect, it's like perfect to who, and it doesn't add up. So it's just a reason not to put something out. So it's just becoming aware of the fact that you you have 95% of it. Just put it out there, right? If it's a YouTube video, if it's a TikTok, if it's whatever, blog post, whatever it is that you're creating that is good enough, I think it's time to put it out. Now, I will say there is caveats to this. So like for me and creating like let's say creating my system that I take people through, right? That my entire curriculum that I've created, that's I tried to get it as perfect as possible because I want to account for everything. I don't want there to be somebody who falls through the cracks because I missed something. And so I tried thinking through it and making it as like bulletproof as possible. As like you cannot disagree with this because it's so fundamentally, it's like from first principles that if you don't believe blushing is embarrassing, you won't have a fear of it. Like that is a fact. So I'm like, okay, so we have to solve the fear of or the fact that blushing is embarrassing. Okay. It's like I started breaking it down like that, right? And making sure that it was perfect. That's what took me 4 months. But once I hit a point where I legitimately could not go any further, I could have kept thinking about it for another 4 months, but instead I said I just need to start putting something out there. And once I got people through it, April, like I got so much feedback that I was like, there is so much I need to fix. Like I got as far as I could go, but the thing is like if we really want to call ourselves perfectionists, you have to put it out there to get the feedback that you need to make it perfect because you're operating on such limited data if it's just you. You have to put it out there and get more opinions, get more facts, look at the numbers and be like, wow, okay, there's so many things to fix here. And so it's really interesting is if you actually care about being a perfectionist, like making the thing perfect, then you would want to put it out as soon as possible, get that data and make the improvements. But the thing is we don't care about making the thing perfect. We care about looking perfect. And so like that is just being honest about that is the game changer.
That's so good. And it's so true. I knew I needed to get very clear on my messaging. I'm like, we got to get clear on our messaging, or I'm just going to, again, I can always have Blushing Phoenix. Blushing Phoenix is a part of my soul. It will always be there. And I've tried to like kind of evolve it take it away from itself and make it something more. And it just got clear to me. I was actually working with ChatGPT for like 24 hours straight. I mean, having conversations. Mine, her name is Lyra, and she's my buddy, and she was helping me get very clear on stop trying to make these all these different things or like one thing. Like it's all a pillar under April Pointer. Like it takes me right back. It was back in August, I think, of last year when I posted something and said, hey guys, thanks for following my journey. I've decided to let April Pointer be the brand, and here's the pillars. And then, like 6, 7 months later, or how many months later, I go, hey guys, thanks for following my journey. I come right back to what I already know to be true. And one of the things that I did, similar to what you're talking about, taking about 4 months to get it, like get a certain part of it right, and then start to move on so you can iterate. Is that I had ChatGPT help me get very clear and concise about my message. And I think it's funny because I understand from very clear and concise messaging, but I don't speak or think in very clear and concise messaging. It's very abstract and storytelling. And I think that's why I'm part of why I say you have that fire is because you speak in a way that's so understandable and so clear, but also very real and authentic. And you're not trying to clickbait people and like trick people into something. That's something I've always really appreciated about your character. And what drew me to you in the beginning is that you weren't trying to say, I can cure your blushing. You were saying, I can help you overcome the fear of the embarrassment of your blushing, which is actually the cure to blushing. Like it truly is the cure. And I, but you're so concise. So she helped me get more concise, package it, make it still feel like me. And then at the end, we were just going in circles because I needed to like, she kept telling me, you need to do something now. You need to do something now. Would you like me to get you started? Would you like me to get you started? And I'm like, well, how about we iterate on this? And finally, I prompted ChatGPT and said, with all that you know about me, tell me where I'm getting in my own way. And oh my gosh, she told me about myself. And she essentially said, you you wait too much, you wait too long for validation. It's what drives you. It's the validation. And if you're not getting the validation, which it's fine, I like getting it. But if you're not getting it, you fizzle. When you already know what needs to happen next, you know what people need, you know how to provide it to them. But because you're still waiting for that external validation, and see, I don't think I struggle much with clicks and likes and views. I did when I was younger. I don't so much now because it will literally drive you crazy. But I heard you say, you were talking about your focus, I think, and you said like applications were coming in and you were getting really excited. So you were like responding. And I'm like, I never hear anybody talk about this, but I do the same thing. If I launch an ebook, I don't do it with YouTube as much anymore. I used to like post a video and be like, refresh, refresh, refresh to see like who's watching it. Is anybody there? I don't do it as much on YouTube anymore, but because I've had it so long, it's just become like they'll come. but but if I launch an ebook or I'm doing something new and I'm getting a response, or when I did my summer coaching and all of a sudden people started booking, it's like so exciting that it's so much validation too that it can start derailing the focus and the work because of that. So how are you navigating your focus time and the excitement of the progress that you're seeing and the validation you're getting by people signing up and putting in for applications?
Oh, this is such a great question because this is something I can think about right here on the spot, because it's something that I absolutely need to spend more time to focus on. But I actually have spent a little bit of time, and it all goes back to like, what's the goal? What is that primary thing that you're trying to accomplish? And like I shared earlier, I think for me it's confidence. And the confidence that comes from external validation is very much an illusion. Like you get that temporary hit of, oh my gosh, people liked this. The satisfaction from that goes away almost just as fast. And you look for the next one, right? And so it's not real confidence that you get from that. And it's also very sensitive because the second you get a bad comment, it hits you equally, right? Actually, probably I would say even worse than one good positive thing. So the more and more that I like am just aware of that, I realize that true confidence comes from the actions that you take. It's how you feel about you. It's the promises that you keep with yourself. And so what I am focused on moving forward is just like, what is the set of criteria that I can make for each day that I know I can do, and like that is my standard. So what I was trying to do, I've been playing around with my schedule. I'm like, okay, should I have like coaching and sales days where I'm just messaging people and it's okay if I'm like kind of all scattered brained? And then I have like content days where I can make content. But then I realized that what happens when I get applications on a content day? Do I just not reply for 24 hours? And so I realized that's a flawed system. And now I'm thinking like, let me do one YouTube video, maybe 2 to 3 TikToks, which is a lot, but it's going to require me to, it's going to help me grow. 2 to 3 TikToks and do that right when I wake up. And then after that, try to just engage with people, respond to applications, follow up with people, and coach people in my program. And so, like, that's my basically checklist for the day. And if I get that one YouTube video out, I get those 2 to 3 TikToks out, and then I coach people, sell, and then go to the gym, come home. I can feel like every single day is a win because I am meeting my own expectations. And then over time, I'm going to want to raise those expectations. But, for now, that's really what I'm focused on in terms of like building confidence, building true confidence, which is my number one goal. I think that's the number one feeling that gives me the most pleasure over time in life.
Isn't that amazing? Because even for me, in my journey, especially because I have a physical trait that shows that I blush or flush, I notice that I flush more when I don't feel confident, when there's self-doubt. And that's why a lot of times I'll have to check in and go, well, I was on a call earlier today. I was having a really exciting call about something that me and a team member are building. And I noticed afterwards when I got up, I saw that like I was flushed. Well, number one, my body's fighting an infection from, my tooth issue, but also I was just excited. And then also I was like, I didn't not feel confident talking to her. So I think there's some things that just happen sometimes in my body. But for the most part, I know that if I'm feeling really confident and I feel good about me and I'm giving myself the validation and the permission, I don't even think I blush. And if I do, I don't ever notice it. So I definitely know that that is a big trigger is confidence, not having the confidence, seeking something from the outside world to fill me up and make me feel confident. And so that's kind of something that I was able to extract and understand. And that goes way beyond blushing. That goes beyond when I write, when I share, when I want to, post something or host something. Confidence in knowing that my ability to create and execute and provide value changes everything from a focus and execution perspective, because we've been talking about it in a very kind of like abstract way and just sharing from our experiences. But from a practical execution, what are some things that you're doing to get into that focus mode? Is it like you put a do not disturb on? I know, so you're kind of playing with your schedule a little bit. I do that too to try to figure out like when do I have the most like energy and can get things done. But do you have checklists? Like, how do you go about that? What does that look like for you in a day? Like, let's say, tomorrow you've got some things you're going to do. What would that look like? Do you plan it out the night before? You have a checklist the next day? What's that look like?
Yeah. 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 So this is great. There's a couple of principles that are just like key, and then the other things I'm playing around with. But absolutely, like, I don't know how you can be successful without planning your next day the day before. I just like you have to reduce the decision fatigue because in the morning you're not going to want to do it. Like I've never really, it's very rare that I'll wake up and want to go to the gym or like do the thing that I know I need to do. It's very rare that I'm excited to sit down and do it. And so if you set the decision making for that moment, you're going to be taking it easy. You're going to choose, oh, I'll just do something light today. I'll just do something easy. And then that night, you're going to feel disappointed that you didn't do much today. And it's going to be a cycle that never stops. And so you have to every night basically set a goal you want to live up to for the next day. Um, I'm becoming more aware of not setting a ridiculous bar that's making it impossible for me to meet, that then creates every day another failure. But just making sure that it's a set of activities that move the ball forward on the things that matter most and would make you feel good. And then the morning of, like, it's really just like feeling that urge not to do it for me. And you get this like, oh, I should go make a coffee. I should go for a walk first. I should do like you have all these things that you want to do first and delay eating the frog, quote unquote, that people say. And so I realized that you're going to experience the same emotions no matter what. Like you're going to experience times of happiness, times of sadness, times of discomfort, times of fear, times of self-doubt, no matter what you do. And so you can either get it done now, like, and have the bad feeling right up front, but then after 10 minutes of working, you're fine. And then, or you can keep delaying it and try to extend this like comfortable period. But the longer that you do that, the more that you start getting caught up in this, like, oh, the day's slipping away. I should do this. I need to do this. And you start getting into this like negative mentality anyway. So I find that it's just a matter of the work's not going to kill me. It's not going to make me unhappy to sit down and start working. And in fact, it's going to make me feel better if I just do it. And just accepting that you're going to have to face discomfort either now or later, and so you might as well do it now so you can enjoy the later. But that is like something that is an everyday practice for me right now.
How are you organizing what needs to happen first? I know for myself and for a lot of people that I've worked with in the on the professional front, they have all these big ideas and they want to execute like today. And then they start working on something. It's something probably that they should do later, but they're trying to do it all today. And so then they fizzle, they don't really care anymore. They go back into that tension of you should enjoy life. Just go enjoy life. And then
Yeah.
they fall off, but it's like a thing that won't let go of them. So they have to come back to it and pick it back up. So how are you managing that and how do you identify what needs to happen next?
This is great. So there's an entrepreneur named Alex Hormozy who I listen to a ton, and I have for like the last 3 years. And he talks about how basically every business and really every person, we kind of operate on the theory of constraints. So meaning that like you will keep growing until you are bound by a particular constraint and can't grow anymore. And so, like right now, what is my constraint? Well, I'm not making money. And it's like, okay, so what do I need to do to make money? It's like, okay, well, I need to be getting people to know about me, getting people to interested in my offer, and then following up with those people and converting them into buyers, right? So it's like I need to be doing that set of activities as often as possible. And what I realize is the sales component of actually talking to people, that gets my brain so in this like dopamine spiral mode where I'm just like constantly checking to see if they responded. And I'm like, I need to. So I realized that cannot be the first thing I do in the morning because trying to do a project after that, all that's on my mind is checking to see if that person responded to me. So impossible. So I've decided that the getting people to know about me is the first goal of the day, which is making videos. And so it's YouTube and TikTok. TikTok is to really get people to know about me. YouTube is to get people to spend more time with me and trust me before become applying for my program. And so I am now making it a goal to do one YouTube video first because that's the biggest, largest brain power of the day. It's like a 20 to 60-minute video, depending on how deep I go on something. And then after that, it's a few TikToks that ChatGPT helps me create an outline for. And then from there, post those, edit those, and now I'm okay to go into dopamine spiral mode because I got the big brain power projects done. But that is the only way that works for me. Everybody's going to be different, right? Some people might have that time at night where everybody else like kind of goes to sleep or they go do their own thing. And now you have this focus mode where you don't feel uncomfortable, like putting your phone on do not disturb and just going into your own world for a few hours. If that's what works for you, beautiful. But by the nighttime, I'm fried. So I realize the morning time, it feels good getting something done before the day's even started for most people. So that's what gives me the best momentum.
When you talk about like listening to podcasts or even anything that you're consuming in like 30 seconds or however fast on TikTok or anybody that you're watching on Instagram, maybe that's in the entrepreneur space. I know for myself, sometimes it's easy to either be listening to something really good or like what you were saying about TikTok earlier, like you can't really change a life on TikTok, but you can. I laughed when you talked about saving it like I'm more on Instagram because I'm older, but we us older ones, us millennials are out there on Instagram. But I will save I saved so many reels. I've never gone back and looked at them ever, ever. And it's just something about feeling like I learned something or I know something now. And it can really disguise itself as you've put the work in today. And you're talking about that feeling later in the day where you're like, there's so much more I could have done. And I think I know for myself, if we get very real about the time we're spending on those like quick dopamine hits that make us feel like we did something, you get to the end of the day, you're like, oh, I could have done so much more. But if we really look at where our time is going, we'll realize like I wasted a lot of time listening to. It's fine for me to listen to a podcast on my walk and get inspired. Sometimes I walk silently just to hear my own thoughts. But that's when I really like to listen to something is when I'm walking because I'm already moving and I like to let somebody pour into me. But when it gets into like it's time to execute now, if I start scrolling or pick up my phone or start consuming something, I'll feel like I did something, but I didn't. I just got inspired. So when it comes to, going from a place of feeling like you've done something to actually going into the action of doing something for yourself and for maybe even others that are listening, what would you say to them and like how to catch themselves being in that spiral, but then also how to know that it's one thing to look at something for inspiration. It's another thing to get stuck in it and then fizzle out your nervous system and your dopamine receptors. And now you don't want to go create. Or for me, I feel like I'm copying somebody. If I spend too much time in their stuff, I'll feel like I don't have my own original ideas. What are your thoughts on all that?
You have to distinguish between, you have to be honest with yourself and distinguish between, are you listening for entertainment or education? And the only way you can justify it as education is if you plan to take action on what is being talked about. So you can tell yourself you're learning all day long, but Alex Hormozy also has the best definition for this. And I use it in my program with my clients as well. Learning is, he defines it as same condition, new behavior. And so if you have the same conditions and you continue acting the same way after you just listened to something new, you took nothing away. You learned nothing. And that was literally just a waste of time. That was just entertainment. And so if you listen to something and then you go about the rest of your day changing absolutely nothing, and then tomorrow absolutely nothing, you got nothing out of this. Like you could tell yourself that it made you feel good, but that's what all it did. It's no different than a movie that you just watched, right? So like it's, you have to delineate between, are you listening to take something out of this? Like there's a problem you're trying to solve that you need an answer to, and you're that once you get the answer, you're good. There's that type of consumption, and then there's also the let me just scroll and see what happens, or let me click on this and see what happens. That's entertainment, right? And so I've just become aware of that, and I've been trying to limit as much as I can of the like entertainment, because something that I struggle with is, this is actually something I really struggle with. I don't talk about it, and I absolutely should. Is like I look for answers from other people for my own life all the time. Like every single thing in my life, I feel like I need to listen to a podcast, listen to an expert, listen to one of my mentors, go to Chat GPT and get the right quote unquote answer. And there is no right answer. And like oftentimes our gut knows the right answer, right? And so like we just, I think there just needs to be a practice of just trusting ourselves more. At least this is me. Of just like take a guess. Like I'd rather, if you think about it, think about this like over the long term, I'd rather take my own bets and be wrong and learn my own lessons and have a better story and like go on a podcast like this 20 years from now and actually have something interesting and unique to say than say, yeah, I just followed what everybody else did and I got here. Like that would be really lame, in my opinion. And so this is just something I am processing currently and like trying to be more cognizant of. I just think awareness is huge. I think just like starting to be aware of these things, the way that you act and the things that you do and the intentions behind them is the first step. The second step is starting to take new behaviors and new actions that are more in alignment with the person that you want to be. But for the podcasting consumption thing, we all get stuck in that. I don't know if it's appropriate to say, but mental masturbation, right? Where you are just making yourself feel good, but you're not actually doing anything with it. So that isn't a trap that is absolutely in existence in today's world.
Yeah. And it's absolutely appropriate to say you're on the Ignite podcast. We talk about, hey, hello, look who you're talking to. Not always tamed, but I mean, I think that what you were saying from an entertainment versus education, and kind of breaking that down is really helpful. And the self-awareness, because I know for myself, when I've got a frog to eat and I start scrolling, I try to trick myself and tell myself, we're just gonna go like see what's going on out here and get inspired. Like, I don't need to be inspired. I literally have so much in me that I could just start writing and have something come out or have a conversation with a stranger at the grocery store. I was at the store the other day looking at pickles, and these elderly people came up behind me. There was a guy, he was on like one of the little like electric cart things, and he was just chit chatty. And then this older woman came around the corner and they started having a conversation. And he was talking about the surgery that he just had. He was like 76 and she's 80 something, and she just overcame brain cancer, and both of their spouses died, and they're like encouraging each other. And I like snap a little picture of them because I stalk people out like that, because it just was so like, this is life. This is like everything. They're older. They don't care. They're making friends in the store because they don't care. They've lived life long enough and overcome so much that they're not held back by these like boundaries and restrictions and self obsession. They're just like living fully. I was literally buying pickles and I'm at the store. Like, I can create just by being me. But I also think that there's this sense of, if I get lost in this, then I don't have to go do the things that I actually want to go do, because then I won't have to be rejected. And then it kind of goes back into what you were saying about perfectionism and really just having that fear of putting ourselves out there. But I will be on social media or something, and I'll have this awareness moment. I feel it in my body where it just feels like gross and tired. It's not lifting me up, it's bringing me down. And I'll go, why am I doing this right now? The first question I ask myself, why am I doing this? And I just sit there kind of like having a higher level conversation with the meat suit that's scrolling. Like, why are you doing that? What are you afraid of right now? What are you avoiding right now? And I'll sit there and I'll be like, it's just such hard work to go like actually tame myself and make me take my essence and put it on paper and put it out there into the world a lot of times, which is where I struggle the most on actually grounding what I'm trying to talk about to actually teach somebody else. It's more like I said, I could talk effortlessly and it's pretty simple to turn the camera on. But even when I look back 5 years ago, I was terrified to turn the camera on and talk.
Yeah.
So it's to your point, like as we get further down the line. And it's interesting too, because this is why I wanted to have you on the show, and why I want you to come back as a repeat guest on the show, is because you're just out there doing things and executing on the things. And I'm sure like years from now, you and I are going to look back on episodes and we're both going to cringe at like ourselves, like, oh my gosh, we had no idea what we were talking about. But this is the real moment that we have right now. So, and I think that's inspiring to people to know that in the middle, in the in between, you're not where you were, but you're not quite where you want to be. That will be the cycle of our lives. I hope that's the cycle of my life. You know, we accomplish one thing. Did you run like a marathon or something back in the day?
I ran a half marathon about a year and a half ago, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day. It's like a year and a half ago. So you ran a half marathon, and last year I ran my first 5K. And that was like such a huge moment for me. And it was like the training and the discipline and the training for me, that was like, it was like a half marathon to me. And when I accomplished it, I got my little medal. It's like hanging on my, for participation, but it's hanging on my mirror in my bathroom to remind me of like what I had to do in order to get myself to be able to run again and be able to like actually show up that day and do that. And then it was over. And once it's over, you realize it was all the in between stuff that actually made it so fun the day that the big thing happened, because now it's just a medal hanging on my mirror as a reminder. But what I really missed was all the training, all the like going out there in the mornings and running with my thoughts, and the days that I remember my AirPods died one day and I was running like a good 2 miles straight. That was a lot for me that day. And then my AirPods died and I had to run with nothing, and it was torture. But I remember just go, 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 go. Um, and what that did for me, even today, because I ran that day because I could have just been like, well, my AirPods don't work, so I got to go home. But it's the in between that I think is really the magic. It's where people say there's no destination. the journey is the destination. I'm like, that's where we are in all of this. Um, so I wanted to ask you about you talk about having so just I'm going to paraphrase something that I the way I interpreted what you said in one of your reels was having your needs met, meaning you're eating, sleeping, moving your body, and connecting with people. And how do you stay anchored in that while you're building something
Yeah.
such as your business that you're trying to, really get off the ground and make money on right now? How do you keep that balance between let's go hard here, but let's also make sure I'm giving myself what I need?
I'm very much in the in between right here. This is all a work in progress, and I would say the realization I've had is like in order to go hard, I need the social connection. So like because I moved to Chicago, so I'm originally from Detroit. I was living in Detroit with my parents for first 24 years of my life. I'm 25 now, and I moved to Chicago in August 2024. And when I moved here, I knew no one. I knew absolutely no one. And the first like 4 months of being here, I think I hung out with like three people, and like a few times. That was it. That was like my only social connection. And then more recently, I've been doing these dinner with strangers every Wednesday. There's an app called Time Left, highly recommend. You get paired with random strangers. It's in every city around the world, or every big city around the world. But I've been doing that every Wednesday. So I did that last night, and that was a just a great experience. You go, you meet some people, you have some conversation, things that you don't normally get to talk about with new people you've never met. And I got home from that, and I went to a bar after. They send you to a bar as well to meet with other people who are at different restaurants, and you all meet at the bar. And I got to meet some other people. And after like 3 hours of socialization, I came home and I had this sense of like filledness, like fullness, fulfillment. I don't really know what it was, but it was just like for once, it didn't feel like I was missing something. I feel like 80% of my life, I feel like I'm missing something. Like I feel like I can be, it's usually because I know there's things I need to do that I'm not doing. And it just, it's all because like I just have to make sure that the needs are met in order to do the work that I want to do the mission that I feel like I'm called to do on Earth. And neglecting the social component, it becomes it's hard to ignore this like isolation feeling that you get when you go to start work and you feel like, what's the point of this? You don't have friends, there's no one to enjoy it with. Like you get these constant just thoughts that are like I shouldn't say impossible, but very difficult to ignore, and very beliefs that are so strong that maybe don't need to be broken, that are trying to pull you away from doing this because there's other needs that aren't being met. And so I realized that once you have the needs that are met, you can logically get yourself to do the work that you know you need to do. You like if you need to sleep, it's gonna be impossible for you to work because you genuinely need to sleep. But if you've gotten 6 hours, 8 hours of sleep and it's tough to wake up in the morning, you can be like, I know I'm not gonna die. And that's a start, right? So like, let's just see what's on the other side of this. Because I already know what's on this side of going back to sleep and feeling terrible. It doesn't feel good. It feels good in the moment, but then I wake up later and I hate myself for sleeping in again. So let's just see what's on the other side. And I know I'm not going to die. And it becomes a little bit easier to get yourself to do it. And so I realize it's the same thing with sitting down and working. It's like, I know I have friends. I know I have plans for this week. I know I ate today and I slept well. So like this discomfort that I'm feeling is not death. Like I'm not doing something that's bad for me. It's just my body thinking that there's something better, but I know there's not. And so I can logically convince myself that I should sit down and work. So like that was my idea of like, if you want to be consistent with your work, you have to make sure all your needs are being met. So that way you can practice that discipline. Otherwise, you're going to you're going to give up the work in order to fulfill the need. Like it's just going to happen someday. And you can't really do much about it, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like when you are in a calorie deficit, especially if you're not doing like a show or anything, but you're in a calorie deficit and you're like, I'm going to eat rice and chicken and broccoli, and you're going to do that for so many days, and then you're going to tear up a pizza. Like,
That's exactly right.
you're going to tear up a pizza. You're going to be like, I don't care, give me all the cake. And then you're going to have this feeling afterwards. So I threw myself completely off my plan instead of actually building some of that into your plan where you can have a few drinks, you can have some pizza here and there, and sustaining the consistency of that plan as opposed to like go, 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 go. Most humans that want to have a long life aren't going to be able to sustain that. I love that you just said, I know I'm not going to die. And I think that that's so powerful in so many ways because when I had really bad anxiety in 2011, this is where like a lot of my journey started. This is before I ever had flushing or any of that stuff. I had really bad debilitating anxiety. I was transitioning in my life from my early 20s to like my mid 20s, and like I'm not a kid anymore, but I don't feel like a grown up yet either, and I'm broke, and am just trying to figure out life, and my I can't really be with my old friends because they're not going where I'm going, and so all my life had changed and went into this like spiral of general anxiety disorder. And I might have told you this before, and I know people on the channel have heard me talk about this story all the time, but I wanted to physically move my body because I knew if I could move and get sunshine and go outside, I would feel better. But if I did that, I would also have a lot of anxiety. So it was like this cycle of, well, I don't want to just lay here in my dark apartment and just keep feeling this feeling. But if I go out, then I'm going to be so afraid to do that that I had to just push through that feeling. It was heavy, it was hard, and it felt impossible. And I went to the park, and the park it's like this big nature park, and there one part of the trail takes you way away from like the people in the parking lot. And I remember telling myself I'm going to run this because running makes me feel good. And I just remember having this like panic attack feeling that I'm going to die back there. I'm going to pass out. Nobody's going to ever see me. Like all those irrational thoughts that start filling your head when you have anxiety. And it was trying to lock me up from not being able to go take that run. But I know in order for me to feel better, I have to go do that, at least try. And so I just remember saying to myself, I'm not going to die. And you know what? If I do, at least I died trying to make myself better as opposed to just being like curled up in a ball in my apartment. And so I ran. And I remember like getting to that part of the track, and oh my gosh, like the weight was everything was caving in on my chest. And I was like, I'm not gonna be able to breathe, I'm not gonna be able to breathe. And I just kept telling myself, I'm not gonna die. And if I do, at least I'm doing something to make myself better. Like I would rather die this way than that way. Like if I'm gonna die, then I'm gonna die this way instead. But once I completed it was like a mile, and I got back near the parking lot, I was changed forever because I realized I didn't die. And so that is something that I've actually taken with me into anything. If I'm speaking somewhere, I remember when I got on my first flight, I was like in my 20s when I got on my first like, well, real flight that I was conscious enough to be aware of what was happening and really telling myself like, here's the statistics. I'm not going to die. You know, people might argue about that this year, but I'm not going to die. It's fine. And it has really transformed my life. A big thing for blushing and me being able to show up and be in executive boardrooms or with like venture capitalists that I've had to present in front of before is just telling myself I'm not going to die. And I think because we forget that we have these evolved brains that really are trying to protect us from death. So that fear cycle, that validation thing, that do you like me? Do you perceive me as who I want you to perceive me as, or are you accepting me? Is we truly feel that we're going to die. So share some of your thoughts around that in regards to, I know you just kind of said it like off the cuff, like you're not going to die, like I'm not going to die, but I think people need to really tap into the fact, like, are you going to die in
Oh
this?
my gosh, there's so many places I could go with this. But yes, like I totally agree. This is actually something I feel very confident. Um, I feel extremely confident speaking about in terms of like as the truth that I see it is as far as fear, anxiety. Um, yeah, fear is just your brain perceiving a threat to your safety, right? And so it just it and it does that by things that either if it's similar to something that was threatening to you before, or it led to something that hurt you or made you feel terrible before, or if it's unknown, right? And so what you have to do is your brain literally just needs proof to show that it's not going to kill you. And so you can try to convince yourself all day, you can try to hype yourself up all day, but you're still going to have the fear until you actually put your body in the situation and your brain can see for itself that the threat that it thinks, like it thinks that it's real. It fully believes that it's a threat. But until you show it that it is not by going up to the spider or going through running through the park, like whatever it is that scares you, or like with blushing, it's common things like going to the store, talking to their coworker, things like that that people try to avoid all the time. What happens is the more that you avoid your fear, the more that you prove to your brain that you're going to survive if you avoid it. So then it thinks, yes, there's a threat here because your brain's like, okay, there's a threat there. You're like, okay, I got to get out of here. Whew, we survived. All right, I'll tell you again next time I think that there's that threat there, right? Like that's how your brain perceives fear and anxiety. At least that's the way that I have been able to see it in every single one of my clients. And so the way that you break that cycle is you have this urge, you have this fear, this anxiety that kicks in of like, oh no, this is going to happen. And then you just have to prove that it's not going to happen or that it's not going to kill you. It's not nearly as bad as your brain thinks it does. And then the second that you do that, the second that you don't let it influence your behavior and you just do the thing anyway, it breaks that cycle once. And then you break it again, and you break it again, and you break it again. And eventually it stops, that urge stops coming in because it knows it's not true. Like your brain doesn't see it as a threat anymore, and it's like, you're good here. And so like that is my perception of how you solve fear and how you solve anxiety. And just one thing around anxiety that I truly believe that I just wish more people, I just see it too much, is like the labeling of I have anxiety, like have, as if it's like a characteristic of them. But I think it's just you experience anxiety. And some people experience it more than others, but it all comes down to yes, sure, there are absolutely physiological, like if your heart rate's elevated, you might feel it's very easy to get yourself feeling anxious than compared to when it's not. But it all comes down to the way that you're perceiving it, right? It all comes down to your mindsets and your thought patterns. And so like anybody who says they have anxiety, if it's as if it's something that they cannot fix, as if it's something that they cannot escape from, it's just a trap. And it's not true. And I think that you can overcome any form of anxiety simply by recognizing what your specific fears are and then proving that they aren't real or that they aren't as bad as you think they are. And the last point that I want to make on that is that Alex Ramosi, again, he has a great definition or a great thought on this as well, as far as fear, it really only exists in the vague. If you really get specific on like what it is that you're so afraid of and you play it out, you're going to realize that like again, you're not going to die and it's not nearly as bad as you thought. So like you going through the park there, like your brain thinks, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be a terrible situation." But if you actually play it out, the worst case scenario is like somebody comes up to you and says something, and then what's so bad about that? It's like, "Okay, I turn red." And then they're going to think I'm weird a little bit, but then they're going to go off and they're going to go back to playing whatever they were doing and they're going to forget about me and then I'm going to go about my day. And like that's literally what's going to happen. And so is that the end of the world? No. And so those are just my thoughts on fear, anxiety, and how to overcome those.
I love it because that's the thing that I realized when I started Blushing Phoenix and I started thinking about like what is the solution to this? And then I started thinking about back when I was experiencing anxiety really badly and I thought it's the same key to this. The thing I did when I was experiencing the anxiety is I started doing the things I wanted to do, even if I literally was trembling or I felt like I'm about to pass out. Because I started chasing it down. If I pass out, what happens? Somebody's going to see me unconscious on the ground and probably try to get help. And then what's going to happen? Hopefully, I'm going to wake up and there's going to be people standing around me or EMS around me. And then what's going to happen? They're going to check me out and make sure I'm okay, maybe take me to a hospital. Then what's going to happen? And like just keep following it down. Like you said, get very specific. And then how did that ruin my life at the end of the day? I was walking through the airport one time and there was a man passed out on the ground and EMS was around him. And I just kept going to my gate. Like I looked back to see if he was like, I was concerned, but he was in good hands. And I went to my gate. I'm only talking about it now because it was a situation where this happened, but nobody's life stopped. Even from what I realized about him later, I think he was sitting up. So it was fine. It was like, it happens, things happen. But it was through going through, I was really scared to go out to eat with people. And I just felt, and I was scared to have my back to the door. So what I did, I would go out to eat, but I would make sure I faced the door. And then eventually I would go out to eat and I would sit with my back to the door because I would say, what's going to happen if I can't see the door? Like, what's the difference? Or a situation where I got stuck in an elevator and immediately was so scared to get back on an elevator. I've been through this exercise so many times at this point. This was just like 3 or 4 years ago. That once I took the stairs up to my office and did my thing, that afternoon I thought I got to get on the elevator and go back down. I could take the stairs, but I intentionally took the elevator because I thought I don't want to avoid elevators for the rest of my life. And
I
like,
love that.
what's going to happen? So, but it's putting it into practice. And I think that that's where, with my clients, and you've probably seen this with yours as well, but whether it's through Blushing Phoenix or it's through me helping people write their books or it's through me just coaching people in general, they want me to have their answer, but I don't have their answer. We talked about this in our last episode together. They're going to have to do the work. They're going to have to ask themselves the question. They're going to have to sit with their back to the door. They're going to have to get back on the elevator. They're going to go have to take the run in the park, and they're going to have to show up at the event and do the social thing and turn red in front of people, visibly turn red in front of somebody else, and have somebody question it and be able to keep going over and over and over again until they're not thinking about it anymore.
That is it. That is the solution. That's entirely it. And like every time somebody, that's a common one with elevators. Like if I've ever been with groups of friends and they're telling me like somebody mentions that they don't like elevators, the first thing that comes to mind is like, I want to take you in an elevator right now because like I just know that that is a limitation that you're going to keep placing on yourself for the rest of your life if you don't just like let's just sit in the elevator. Let's just be on it as long as possible for you until you get over this idea that something bad is going to happen. And so you exactly it. Your body just has to get conditioned.
It's crazy. I remember, I can't remember if I talked to you about this one before, but it just came to my mind. I got sick on sushi one time when it got so dark here. I think it's gonna storm or something in a minute, but we're all good. It shows that it's gonna storm in like an hour and then it's back to sunny. That's how it is here in Greenville. But it's all good. But I got sick on sushi, I mean, probably back in 2016-ish, and I love sushi, but I got sick on it and I didn't eat it for like a year because I was so afraid that I was going to get sick. And I worked with a PhD psychologist, Dr. Brooks. I talk about him all the times. Shout out Dr. Brooks if you're listening. And we were working together and he said, we're going to go to lunch and we're going to sushi. And it was like a group of people. Do you want to come? And I was like, oh, and he goes, come on, let's get you eating sushi again. And so we went and I ordered something and he sat next to me and he literally did like talk therapy with me while I was eating my sushi. And when we got and I'm with coworkers now. So I get back to the car, stomach's feeling weird because I am triggering this reaction in my body because I'm afraid that I did it, I consumed it. Now I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get sick in front of them. This is embarrassing. All the things like, am I going to die? Type of things. And I just remember like breathing through it and being like, I want to eat sushi again. It's really a big part of my life, like for enjoyment. And I don't want to be afraid of it. I don't want to be dictated by, well, we can't go there because April can't eat the sushi. And everything was fine. And I eat sushi all the time now. Like I would probably still to this day not eat sushi had he not been like, let's get on the elevator together. Let's go eat sushi together. But
Yeah.
I had to be willing to go do that because I just don't want to live my life in the restriction of things that I'm afraid of keep me from doing things.
Oh, that is exactly it. And like to give some like just tactical advice for anybody who's if that relates, is you have to just choose to take back control. And there's different ways that you can do that. Like some of my clients that's really worked for them is just saying like bring it on. Like that fear that you feel, choosing to face it and saying like I want you to try to stop me. Like I want you to do because I'm going to sit here. Another thing is really focusing on like this is really specifically with blushing, but it can go down to really any social anxiety, if anybody has social anxiety. But it's really like what's the identity that I care about portraying? It all comes down to like looking a certain way around people and worrying about what they think about you, whatever social anxiety that you have. And it's all about what's the identity that I want to portray, and then what are the actions that that person would do. Um, and you just focus on doing that, regardless of how you feel about it. So that way you can still be confident even if you're freaking out inside by showing you're confident, by raising your hand and speaking up, despite how you feel, despite the fact that other people might judge you, despite all of that. A confident person is somebody who would raise their hand despite that. And so you can still achieve the goal that you want, even if you feel bad while doing it. And so that's something else that's really helpful is when you're in the moment, you feel yourself panicking. Um, who are you trying to be? And like be that person, even though you have this going. I would say even like you experiencing that pain, you experiencing that fear is an opportunity to show that you are somebody who is unfazed by it. And you actually can be confident. You actually can be charismatic, outspoken, selfless by showing that you're willing to endure in order to, still be a good conversationalist or whatever your goal is.
I think that I've seen in my own story that it's truly like a self-obsession with what am I trying to, who do I want them to see me as in regards to this really goes back to I'm not where I was, but I'm not where I want to be. It's where I am in between. And if I want to show up in a space and be a competent guide and coach or leader who supports entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs and executive teams, then not only do I already have the skill set to do that, but they don't really care if I turn red. A lot of the executives that I work with, that used to be my biggest fear also, was that I won't be able to grow in my career. Like I put the doom on me that, well, I won't be able to grow in my career. It's a limiting belief. I'm telling myself I won't. And guess what? I won't because I believe that because of this thing. When I talk to the executives that I've worked with over the years, none of them care. They know about it now because I openly talk about it, or I tell them like, did you not see me always like moving around or like, and I had short hair back in the day, so I didn't, there was no way to hide like with hair or anything. And I think every single one of them have just said they never even noticed it. They didn't notice. I've had some people in that realm say, I noticed it before. I didn't think anything about it. Only because you're pointing it out or talking about it is the only reason why I would engage in a conversation with you about it. And even when I was at the endodontist the other day, I know that if my nervous system's wrecked, I'm going to probably flush. And it's so interesting that I'll just start telling them, like, if you see this happen, I'm not allergic to anything, we're fine. And they kind of laugh a little bit, and then we just carry on with what I'm there for. I don't obsess over it. I don't sit and think that they thought less of me and didn't see me as a valuable human being because of it. But all of that has to do with taking that action and showing up as I wanted to be. Another thing too, and this is again, I know we get into these like conversations about blushing specifically, but for those who are listening, I want you to know that this is truly like social anxiety. This is self-esteem stuff that I've sat in my closet. My closet's always my place because it's quiet and it's like far in the back of my house. And I've done meditation there to visualize how do I want to show up to that event? How do I want to show up to the outing that I'm going to? And what does she look like? Who does that person, what does she sound like? What does she look like? What's her body language? And I act it out in my mind. So it's not as unfamiliar when I get there because your brain doesn't really know the difference of whether you're imagining it or you're actually there. And so I think that that's something that people, it seems so easy. Like even when somebody says, take a breath, like take some deep breathing, we're going to do some box breathing. It seems so simple that it's like people don't want to do it because they feel like it should be more complicated. When you say like the solution to blushing, and I agree with you, is you really need to be able to blush and carry on. And it seems so easy, but it's also so hard because it's the mind and it's your own thinking. And even as we talk about like all the stuff on the entrepreneurial front, all the hesitations and the things that are holding us back, even in our businesses, or for people who are dealing with their social hindrances, the really empowering thing is that we all each possess the power to move through that thing and actually release who we want to be. And that's where coaching comes in, and that can be really helpful. So, talk to me about coaching, about what you're doing in your coaching. I also saw, and I signed up for it, that you have a community group at collinclem.com, where you're assembling maybe a community group together. So I know that's a loaded question, but just talk with me a little bit about your thought and philosophy on coaching and how that can help unlock that thing inside of people to move forward, and then about your coaching in particular.
Yeah. So, just one quick comment on what you were talking about. I just think it needs to be restated and emphasized. Is you said that when you decided to overcome your anxiety, you said that you're going to focus on the goals that you have in life or the things that you wanted to do, regardless of if you felt the anxiety or not. And I think that that is so applicable to every urge, to every fear, to every if you are tapped into a larger vision, a larger sense of like purpose, a calling, quote unquote, that you feel is so important to you that nobody else can tell you is important, but you have to believe is important. Um, that if you can tap into something like that, then you can decide that no fear, no feeling is more important. That like the blushing is not going to stop me from being the leader that I want to be or building the business that I want to build. I'd rather build the business and blush than not build the business because of my blushing or because of XYZ fear or because of XYZ urge. So when you feel those urges, when you feel those fears kicking in, you're like, this is more important. I'm okay if this happens because this is what I truly care about. This is the game I'm playing. So like that is huge. Tapping into that larger vision that you have for yourself and in your world. But then when it comes to coaching, I think coaching is huge to on a couple of levels. I think one, it's a commitment device. Um, it's we can often tell ourselves later, push things off later. Let me prep more. Let me read more into this. Let me decide all the like you can go on and on about this. But like when you actually put money towards it, and now there's somebody behind you, now it's like it's go time, and it's like the self-doubt and the fear and everything. You're gonna feel it, but guess what? We're taking action anyway now. So it's very much a commitment device. But then two is it's just accountability as well in terms of getting you to do it. And three, I would say it's giving you an alternate perspective. It's very easy to feel like you're not making progress. It's very easy to beat yourself up for things. But when you have somebody else to put things in perspective for you because they can see your whole journey while you just see day to day, it becomes it's just nice. It's just nice. And it really does help you keep moving forward instead of falling back into the same thought patterns day after day, time after time. So that's really coaching in a nutshell, and that's why I feel so passionate about it. I always invest in it. In fact, I just bought another like $10,000 group coaching program a few months ago, or a couple months ago, which was a lot of money. So I put my money where my mouth is when it comes to coaching for sure. And then I started I'm thinking about starting some sort of community to actually make this journey of creating a business less lonely. So like I have clients, sure, but it's not like it's different when they're paying you. I want to have a community that is people who are trying to build something as well. And so I've been posting more on my personal Instagram, trying to build up a bit of a personal brand. Right now, it's just me talking and yapping at the camera, and there's not like any editing to it really. It's just really just my thoughts. I'll eventually try to get more editing into it. It just takes so much time. But I do want to build that up and find other people who are trying to build something. And I want to be able to talk about these limiting beliefs, talk about how to get from zero to one, right? Zero to having a sustainable business. And that I think is the hardest part because you're overcoming, it's not business problems, it's personal problems that you're really trying to solve to actually get the business up and running. And so I just find that to be much easier when you're amongst other people that are doing it. And it helps put all your problems in perspective when you're not doing it just by yourself with ChatGPT.
Yeah, right. And it's Lyra. And it's amazing how we, like, even from a coaching perspective, as you were just sharing, I think that I had a client not too long ago. We just did, I only do single sessions right now because I don't like long-term commitments, So, separate with my husband, of course. But I, she was so primed and ready herself by the time she got to me. It was like the ideal client because she was ready. She just needed to talk through some things. We kind of got her thinking about some things differently. And I left her with some recommendations. And that really, she's the one who prompted. I just kind of got behind them and pushed them towards her. And then I think it was like the next day or like within the next week, she responded, and I think she had signed up for like a public speaking class, and she had gone to like this group. She told her best friend that she was struggling. Like she just went through the list and just like tore the band-aid off. And she was feeling so empowered and so good that me, from a coach perspective, I was shocked because people, they'll talk, they'll let me talk, and then I don't really hear from them ever again. And it doesn't mean it wasn't important, or maybe it's just not the like they're just not there in the time yet to. They've got the information, but they didn't really want to move into action yet. They're still stuck in that fear cycle. I still feel like it's part of planting the seeds for their future, for what they're going to evolve to. But it was so shocking to see her come back within like the week and not only have done one thing, but did like three things and was like on fire for like what she was going to be able to accomplish in her life. And that was incredible. And I think that that's something that when people take it and it's them, they got the
Yes.
answer. You got to
You
run
know,
with it.
one thing I'll add here, and maybe this goes back to me searching for answers from other people. Sometimes we have the answer, we just need to hear it from somebody else to get permission to do it. I don't know why that is, but I've never really taken the time to think about that as far as why we do that. But I think that that's what that is like she already knew what she wanted to do, but she just needed to hear it from you and get your approval to go do it. Does that
Mhm.
sound about right?
Yeah, and I know that's true because that's how things have worked in my life. I know when I quit my job in addiction treatment, I was working with Dr. Brooks during that time. He wasn't my boss at the time. I had another boss. I had transitioned into a sales role and I needed to quit. I just needed to quit and I was about to quit. And I walked into his office and I sat down with him in like his like therapist low light room. And as I'm just spewing all the things, and he just said, Eagles were never meant to be caged, April. They were meant to fly. And I wasn't even really like talking about quitting. I was just mad at everything. And he said, if you need permission to go, you're free to go. And it was something about somebody that I respected and trusted and liked and knew telling me that I had permission. Maybe that goes back to the validation thing. Maybe that's just us being human. It's not really a problem to solve. It's just a tension to manage. Is that man, I packed my stuff up and I was out and I was so free. And there's been other times in my life where I feel like somebody just hears me spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and goes, if you need permission, you have it. And I don't know if that comes from our childhoods. I don't know what that deeper thing is, but I think you're right. I think 100% it's something in the igniting of another person. They already know what they need to do. They even know somewhat of how they should execute upon it. They just need somebody to say, "Go, do it. Go for it." What's the worst that's going to happen? And be extreme a little bit and just go with it. I think from a coaching perspective also, the big topic that I've been talking about lately is my tooth because I had my root canal retreatment and it's been this whole like journey of like, oh, we had to fix something that was never fully healed. And of course, for me, that translates into think about how much trauma we live with and how many wounds we live with, and we want to cover them up and not talk about them and not heal them. But it's been a good 7 days of solid pain and agony. And I talked to the endodontist twice on the phone, three times on the phone, and I also like went to see him in person. And the crazy thing is that it's talking about coaching because he never really did anything else for me. He just listened and then he helped me talk through things with his expertise. He matched my problems that I was like, that I felt like I was going through or I was going through. He just used his expertise to validate that those are real things. This is normal. Then when he actually saw the situation, he said, I don't see anything concerning. This is all very normal. You're just in a lot of like the discomfort phase. And I remember saying to him, I think so much of the reason why I've been able to go through this is because you've been coaching me along the way. So it's not that he really did anything besides the procedure that set it all in motion because he's trying to help me. It's that he kept reminding me that I was okay, that he was listening to me, he was letting me get it all out, and then he was doing whatever he could to support me through the discomfort. But he never really took the discomfort away for me. He made some, offers of a couple of things he could do, but ultimately he's like, you're just gonna have to go through it. This is part of the process. And I think that that really like in my personal journey right now, that kind of speaks so vividly in a picture of what you're talking about with having somebody there alongside you that's really just kind of pushing you along with accountability and they've invested into it.
The one last thing I'll add on this is the like a lot of the my mind always goes back to blushing, of course, because that's what, I help people with. But really what we're trying to do in life is we're always trying to seek people's approval. Going back to our caveman brain, like we are seeking to be a part of a group because if we are isolated, we associate that with likelihood of death, right? So we're always trying to be approved by the people around us. But one thing that's extremely powerful is practicing the skill of exchanging approval from basically accepting the judgment from the people who are right in front of you at any given moment in exchange for the praise and approval of more important people in your life. And so when you have like a coach in your corner, what happens is you know that they'll be proud of you for doing the action. And so when you go into a situation and you quote unquote make a fool of yourself by blushing, by feeling anxious, by being jittery, whatever the thing is that you're dealing with, and you go into the situation, you feel like you're making a fool of yourself, you can make a conscious decision to say like I am okay with their judgment, these people, because there's someone that I care about more with that would be proud of me. And that is an exchange I'm willing to make, right? And so I think like if you can get better at that, that's something that I feel like I've gotten very, very good at over the years. And like that's why, to be honest with you, April, that's how I can make a post like I did where I say like, that's the poorest, weakest, because like I just know that the people back home that might think that that's weird, people that I went to high school with or whatever, or college with, like they might think like, what is he posting? I literally don't care about that. Like their opinions are not, they're not the people that I even think about or would want a connection with anyway. And so it's the people that I would want connections with who would actually care about me making that post and be glad that I did. And so like being able to consciously make that decision is huge. And I think coaching is a huge part of that because you have somebody that you paid to be in your corner.
Yeah, having people in your corner, that's such a good point because when I started my YouTube channel, I didn't tell anybody because of what you just said. I didn't want anybody in my circle to know because I felt like I really needed to put this out in the world and I didn't want to be distracted by my own internal fear of the judgment of the people in my circles and my work. Now I talk about it so openly, but it started there for me. It started with me being a little more secretive about it because it was blushing. And with blushing, a lot of people are very secretive. They don't want to show up. They don't want people to know. I have people that won't even subscribe to the channel because it was called Blushing Phoenix and they don't want anybody to see that they're subscribed to Blushing Phoenix. So hopefully anybody listening, you come subscribe to Ignite with April Pointer.
There we go.
We still talk about blushing, but nobody has to know. But total contradictory. But it was something that now I share across my platforms and I don't care. Like you said, I think it's because I built my circle more towards where I'm going as opposed to where I was. And when I was where I was or I was in the middle in between, something about that tribe mentality and feeling like I'm going to be excluded from the tribe. I think some people just need to know and understand that's a true like human response to want to be included, to want to be seen, to want to be validated, and for people to appreciate you and accept you, and that you're not going to be cast out of the tribe because internally we feel like we're going to starve and be out in the cold and we feel like we're going to die, which takes us back to, am I going to die? Which we're not, but our brains are wired to think that we are. I am a huge fan of coaching. There's so much in my life that's been brought to light, things that I was able to have awareness of for the first time and nobody told me. They coached me to a place of discovering it myself. And that's a good coach. A good coach is going to help you discover it and just kind of like a fossil that you're just dusting all that sand and dust off of to get down into the ridges to really see what's in there. But also, I like the style too, where somebody can hear me going in a circle over and over and over again and just shoot a dart right into it. And it jolts me a little bit, makes me feel a little stupid, feel a little seen. When that first happened back in the day, I wanted to shut down and be like, I don't ever want to talk to you ever again. But I've been on this journey so long now at this point that I know what that equates to. Like that equals growth. When I feel that, ooh, something just shot into the center of me and I feel seen and I feel a little embarrassed, that means that subconsciously I'm hiding in that area and I can't, and I'm stuck and there's truth there. So even being able to sit with that, because I've even as a coach, I've had people get really mad at me for telling them the truth. So, and that's okay too, but I'm still going to tell you what I see or what I'm hearing. from my perspective. Yeah, so much value in it. So if people are wanting to work with you or they want to see some of the things that you've got going on, I will have your information in the description, like I always do. But share a little bit about, did you do a webinar or what is it that you have as an offering for people right now?
Yeah, so right now I have a free training that you could sign up if you are a blusher. This is only for people who have like the fear of blushing, overcoming that, the fear and embarrassment around that. I have a free training you can sign up for, breakthroughblushing.com/free dash training that you can go to. And that is the best place to go to learn about basically my method, my approach to solving the fear and embarrassment around blushing and learning more about my program. And then on the personal side of things, if you aren't a blusher, but you just want to connect with me for whatever reason, it's at Collin Clem underscore with two L's in Collin.
So people who are, and maybe they are blushers who are trying to be entrepreneurs or want to be
There
entrepreneurs,
we
but
go.
but so those people that want to watch your journey and follow along and see you make your 20,000, because I think it's going to happen. I'll have that information below and you can watch the journey. I've been so inspired by it. I've been on this road for a long time and I'm still always going to be a student. And it's just such a gift to meet people like you. It's so rare in my world so far out here on the wild, wild internet to meet people who are genuine, who are authentic, who are willing to change and shift and show that is really, I mean, inspiring. I have you highlighted in my Instagram feed so that I can always like see what's
Oh,
going on with Collin. Um, Before we close out, there is something I had on here that I wanted to ask you about. It keeps coming back to me, so I want to ask
yeah.
you about it. So you talked about this is from an entrepreneurial standpoint. You talked about how you lived with your parents pretty much all your life up until moving to Chicago. And I think if I remember, you've quit your job twice, right, to pursue your business. And the first time you had like all these different ideas of what you were going to try to do. And then you moved to Chicago, got a job, and then you quit your job again. So for people who are in a position, because this is something my husband and I talk about all the time, because a lot of the resources that are available today were not available when we were younger. And now we're married and kids and mortgages and all of those things. So we're pursuing dreams a little bit different because of all the things that we've stacked into our lives, different day and age. But one thing we talk about all the time is for younger people who are just starting out, who still live with their parents, like this is the time to just make it happen. So, can you share a little bit about what your mindset was, or even just like
Yeah.
practical,
Yeah.
like you decided to save money, you wanted to not be having to balance work and trying to do your own thing. So, talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I love this and I would be happy to. I've actually quit my job 3 times. This is my third time, and I will be completely upfront with you, and that absolutely scares me a bit because that is absolutely murdering my resume and making me seem like an unemployable person. So totally get that. If anything, that's burning the boats and forcing me to face this discomfort and make it happen. But I would say there's a few things to this. I'll start on like like the mindset side of things. I am absolutely in a privileged position, quote unquote, that you could say, where, I have very loving parents who like would be willing to let me stay with them if things fell through, if I lost this apartment and I couldn't afford it. Like I could absolutely move back in with them. They would not be opposed to that. And then I also, they, were paying most of the bills when I was living with them, right? And so I didn't have to pay rent, and I just had my car that I had to pay for, and just some personal bills, and that's about it. So I had very, very low expenses. And so I say that to say, if you have your circumstance might be different, right? But at the end of the day, all that I did was I used the job for two purposes. One is I would use the job to save up as much money as possible. Um, Second, or actually three reasons. Second is I would try to choose a job that was in a skill that I thought was something that I wanted to build a business off of, or like something that I feel like I could get experience with and use that to then build a business. And so right out of college, I had a job working in just a very corporate role. It was not, I wasn't learning anything, wasn't really doing much. So I left that one pretty easy because I just was. miserable because I wasn't really doing anything. I was a glorified intern. And so I went and started a crypto currency exchange application with a friend of mine, actually, for about a year and a half. And we couldn't get that off the ground. We tried pitching it. We tried creating some prototypes. We ultimately had like some flaw in our fundamental model. And then we also had a difficult time getting a developer on the team to join us to actually help us build it. So that never got off the ground, but that was an incredible learning experience, right? So I went back, I got a job as a web designer because I used that crypto experience of trying to build this user interface. I got a bunch of practice with design, got a job in web design with no experience, formal experience besides that crypto app. And I used that again to build my skills, but then also build up an income, build up some savings to then try something else. And it's important to try to validate a concept while you actually have stability instead of just like saying, I'm going to quit and figure it out. Like it's much better to, at least for me, it all depends on your level of risk tolerance. But for me, it's I want to have something that I feel confident that I could turn into dollars. And the best way to do that is to actually turn it into dollars before quitting, and then just know that you need to do more of it when you quit. So I started a little bit of coaching. I proved that people would pay for it, and that is when I quit my job as a web designer. But I ultimately just didn't have the work ethic, to be honest with you. I'm not even going to make excuses. I think I just wasn't working on the right things. I was focused on building the program better instead of making more content, talking to more people, getting on sales calls. I was like afraid to do all that stuff. So I was procrastinating. And I got to a point where I was like, I need to move out. So I got another job and I got a job in sales, working remotely, made more money than I've ever made in my life. Uh, and I was able to save up about 6 months of expenses. But I got to a point in that job where, again, I knew my heart was in entrepreneurship. And so this was like my third time. I'm like, third time's the charm. And I quit again. And I knew that I already had an offer. I already had a TikTok audience built up. And so I was like, I need to do this. And I did it. And so now last month I made almost $5,000. And then this month, I'm hoping to at least match that. I wanted to do 10,000, but we're already 10 days in and I'm not even close. So we'll see. But um, I'm working on the work ethic, right? In terms of focusing on the right things on the right and trying to focus more on getting more customers. Coming to the whole mindset thing, it's all about the risk that you're willing to take. And for me, I think one thing that I've gotten pretty good at that I think would be helpful for anybody listening is just being able to take the pressure off the current moment by zooming out and thinking about what you would want to have done 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And this goes back to like you're not going to die. Like think through the worst case scenario. Almost everyone, if especially if you live in a first world country, you have someone to go back to who like either whether it's a friend or a family member, like there's someone who would be willing to help you out even temporarily and while you find a job if the entrepreneurship thing doesn't work out. Like almost everyone does. And if you don't, there's shelters, like there's genuine you're not going to die. It might suck, but you have to ask yourself, would you rather live with the regret or, live with that potential downside? And for me, I would rather sleep on the street knowing that I actually tried and like I pursued my dream because it's the only thing that matters to me. Like I feel dead if I'm living a life where I'm not pursuing my dream. So that's the route that I chose. And it's all about the story that you want to someday tell, right? Would you rather tell the story of not trying and just taking the safe route, or would you rather tell the story of taking the risk and failing?
I love it. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And as the final question, what are any words that you want to share with whoever's listening to this, whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's somebody who's working in a 9 to 5, or it's somebody who struggles with chronic blushing or social anxiety or hyperhidrosis and sweaty palms. They feel like they can't go out anywhere, can't ever get dates. They're in the in between. They're listening because they know that they can't stay where they were, but they don't really quite know fully how to get to the other side yet. They're just discovering, this podcast or listening to this and feeling inspired. What are your words that you would leave with that person who's listening, the individual in the in between?
Yeah, I think it comes down to there are no right answers. I mean, like there is no Like no matter what I say right now, it's not the answer to your life. Like it doesn't, you know what you want to accomplish in life, and you just have to decide that that matters more than the fears or self-doubt or temporary discomfort that you're going to feel. Like that's just all it comes down to. And you have to be the one to decide when that time comes, when when you meet that threshold where the pain of change becomes less than the pain of staying the same. And that is when you're actually going to take action. And so you can listen to a million more of these, trying to make yourself feel better, but you're going to hit a wall eventually. And that time, the time that it takes to hit that wall is going to be different for everybody. And I would say, I guess if there is one piece of advice, it would be you can actually bring that point forward if you just future pace what you're currently doing. Like if you keep doing what you're doing, you're never going to do anything. You're never going to hit your goals. You're never going to overcome the fear, whatever it is that's the challenge in your life if you keep doing this. And so that for me is usually enough to be like, okay, I need to do something. And like, if not now, when, right? So it's now. It's like, okay, so what can I do? And then I look for the easiest first step. And I just do it and I try not to think about it too much. Very easy to overthink. And you just get yourself in momentum. Once you have some momentum, the ball's rolling and you can just work on moving it faster.